G'day and welcome to Insights and Storytellings with me, Moon Willow. Thank you very much for joining me. I really love it when your energy combines with mine to do these stories. It helps me realise that no matter what the major narrative seems to be or what the push and drive is, I'm definitely not isolated, and I really know that I'm not alone in trying to navigate a very, very bizarre time, and time that doesn't seem in a lot of ways to make that much sense. Well, it certainly doesn't to me, no matter the main push and main drive of the narrative. I'm aware that I haven't put one of these out for a couple of days, and that has been a combination of things. One's been me catching up on sleep, and the other was I did try the other night to put one out, and it didn't record all the way through, and I ran out of linear time to do another one at that moment. But in that particular one, and I'm going to bring it up tonight because it feels quite needful. It was around, I was looking at quality of sleep, which is why it was really important, I guess, for me to catch up on mine yesterday. And I had noticed for most of last week that I hadn't, although I had the time to sleep, that the quality of my sleep was exceedingly poor, and I was waking up quite early, only after a couple of hours, and it was like almost going through time jumps. I woke up feeling quite panicked, and there was nothing discernible at those moments to indicate why that would be. And then Sunday I managed to actually have good quality sleep, and I noticed sort of Saturday going into Sunday that there was a shift. It felt like there'd been a real shift around me and in the world energies that felt like it was like the dam had been released. There was almost like this build up prior to Sunday, and it was like this constant sort of increase in energies, or of both sides, so increase in the higher as well as the darker, and it had almost had this claustrophobic feel, and felt really claustrophobic is a good word, but that is a good word, and that is pretty much what it was. But it was almost like it was overpowering and overbearing and very restrictive. And I know the world, certainly in the UK at the moment, we're living in huge restrictions, and it's sort of feeding into that in a way. And then on Sunday, it felt like when I woke up in the afternoon that it felt like the dam had broken, that there'd been this shift. But it is like the dam has opened, and things are starting to move at an increased rate. But within that, if you imagine a beaver dam, that there's a lot of debris and there's a lot of stuff that makes that dam, that prevents that water from flowing through. So as that dam breaks, not only are you getting the water going through, but you're also getting all the debris with it. So it becomes quite difficult. It's even more difficult to navigate, really, and it can be seen as quite chaotic and unclear. And it's like, well, which bits do you hold on to? Which bits do you let go of? if you've got a piece of wood floating by you, do you cling on to that to remain with your head above water to navigate the stream ahead? Or do you let go of everything and just trust that your body is going to be buoyant enough and able to float through the water to clearer water? So it's almost like that's all going off at the minute. And there are times, I was talking to someone earlier, and I brought this up on one of the ones that I did that didn't get uploaded. I was talking about darkness and chaos. Now, I know most people don't like either, and I'm quite strange in the respect that I really love the dark. I find that quite comforting, bizarrely. And actually in chaos, I don't find chaos too scary either. There's a part of me that likes order, but I don't know, I find a comfort in the chaos. And I think the reason why I find a comfort in the chaos is that the more chaotic, the more old systems are being broken down, and we can actually start to sift through and see what fits or feels right to carry it forward, or recombine things into something that's more solid, that's something that's more connected and nurturing and useful and beneficial. So I suppose in a way that's like that dam, and reaching for different pieces. It's like you could reach for a piece of wood to keep yourself up and help navigate this really quite murky and at times fast moving water. But that again is like what I've been talking about if we're putting our anchor point into something else, if we're putting our whole ability to survive into this piece of wood, what happens if that wood gets snagged? What happens if that wood becomes unwieldy? What if that wood is the wrong size and won't go flowing further forward, and you get caught behind it or dragged under? Whereas if you're just trusting that you're going to be all right in that flow of water, and you don't try and hold on to, you don't try and grasp for anything else around you, but just let go with faith and love and a knowing that the body you've got is sufficient to survive no matter where that water takes you. And yes, there may be times when we get hit on the head with a random piece of wood that's next to us, or a stick or mud, that there are times when we get caught underneath a whole flotsam of various pieces around us. But if we don't panic, if we, as I say, let go and trust and have faith that it is going to be okay, if we're not panicking in that water, we're less inclined to get caught up in the debris around us. We might get hurt, we may get bruised, we may end up with a cut, but we can deal with all of those. We have the ability to heal. We have the ability to treat those, but we need to try and make it through in as much of a one piece as possible. And that's more likely to happen if we're not clinging on to something else for dear life. Because if that's taken away from us, we won't feel able to cope and survive, because we're putting everything onto an external and not trusting our internal. So I'm hoping this makes sense, and I'm equally hoping this is recording all the way through. We will see. So with that in mind, okay, we're going for that. So we're back to sacral again. And I think this is really very important, and really doesn't surprise me that this has come out again, the carnelian. Because it is about, this moment in time is about our creative ability and what it is we're actually trying to create. What is the world that we're trying to create, to live in? What is it? What meaning are we making around the different things that are presented to us? And what are we attributing to that? Are we attributing that as a negative thing or a positive thing? What stories are we telling ourselves about what we're seeing going off around us? And it's like that plank of wood. If we're telling ourselves the story that the only way we survive is by being able to cling on to that piece of wood, and that wood gets snagged or burnt or dragged under, we go with it. So it's about really trusting our gut, trusting our instincts, because we have really good survival instincts. We must do, we're still here. It's also about really feeling the flow through the chaos, and trusting our guts and trusting ourselves to navigate that in a manner that keeps us whole. And it may be that there is a piece of wood that floats past us, and we hold on to that for a short while, but we don't become dependent on that piece of wood. That we know that if it takes us in the wrong direction, that it's okay to let go of that. It's all right, because another piece of wood will come along, and we can use that as a support. It's not about doing it all by ourselves. It is about sharing and co-creating, but recognizing that actually we are still the navigators of our own journey, and that it may be that one moment we can use a piece of wood to just get through a really rough patch, and another piece to actually take us in the direction we need to go. That we may end up in an eddy along the way, so that it is still a calmer water, but we can't stay there. It's not, there isn't enough to support us, there isn't enough to nourish us. We can become too isolated. We do need to go back out and flow through this. And in the chaos as well that we're living in at the moment, we can really look at it with very open eyes and see the bits that feel right. What is we want more of in our world? Do we want to be able to connect with people? Do we want more contact with people? How can we achieve that? I did one of my daily walks around the reserve today, and it was just incredible, because there was a lot of strangers there. A couple I know from doing this walk on a regular basis, and we always say hello to each other. But I was met and greeted by lots, well, not lots, there wasn't that many of us actually around, hasten to add. There wasn't quite that many. But every person I actually ran across, actually either I initiated or they initiated a hello and a connection. And that was just wonderful. And then on the walk around as well, I managed to see a heron, so I spent time just communing with the heron. Lots of different birds, and the birds were just phenomenally yakking away at each other. And that reminded me that actually that is the noise that's out there as well. It's just this constant white noise that is really difficult to tune into the frequency or the dialogue that I would like to have. And it's like trying to work out where we can have that. And it's been a day for me as well where I've had a lot of really wonderful connections, even though I haven't physically, well, I saw the people around the reserve, obviously, because I didn't have my eyes closed, just saying. But I've had a lot of other connections with really close friends that have really helped me recognize that although I'm in isolation, I'm not. That on an energetic level, I can still share and be in contact with other people. And they were my pieces of wood today. And I don't have to cling on to them really dramatically. It's just been enough to be able to hold on for an hour and then let go and continue navigating on my own. And just really noticing the energies of what I'd like to continue bringing in and how I can actually continue having that as an option and as a choice. So carnelian for me and sacral space is really key through this moment. We're being given a fantastic opportunity to be a part of the world that's being created. And although we may not feel it, maybe we feel like we're hemmed and boxed in a way that our input's not going to make any difference. But just on an energetic level, it is making a difference. That as we focus on more clear contact with other people, that we learn the ability to be ourselves, navigate our own journeys, but at the same time notice the support that's there, but not cling on to it. Let go of it at the right time so that we can actually go in and out of this, we remain integral, we remain in our own space, we remain in our sovereignty. So let's see what the cards have to say within this at the same time. I feel like I'm sort of lecturing a little bit and I'm not meaning to. So I'm hoping that this isn't the way it's coming across. And there's my hair and everything again. And these cards make sense of everything really. So we've got the polar bear, tree, and the lily. So the polar bear is really reminding us to protect ourselves. As we're going down, I'm going to continue using the analogy of the dam and the river, but protecting ourselves from the debris. And by that I mean, at the moment, protecting ourselves from the information coming in that may be trying to push us into being more fearful, anxious, stressed, doubting ourselves, because there is a lot of information coming out at the moment, masses of it, and that can be quite frightening because it's difficult to work out what's real, what's not real, and that is again going back into the sacral. It's like trusting our gut, what feels right, and then what do we do with that information. But we can protect ourselves within that, and putting our shields up before we go outside, and noticing when we're inside and isolated, when thoughts come up and doubt, and feeling loneliness or emptiness that can come when you're by yourself, and then really recognizing that yes, we may be physically alone, but there are people around, so we're not energetically alone, and we can protect ourselves or that aspect of ourselves by being in touch with people. but really having that support and shielding and protection when we go out, and holding our truth, holding our way of being, of how we would like to experience the world when we go out, really holding that in the core of ourselves, so that that is going to be what you meet, in my experience. And it is very much like walking around that reserve today, that I didn't want to enter into any dark narratives or have any negativity, because I've chosen to go walk around a reserve. And I wasn't met with any, even those that didn't communicate, they didn't have, they acknowledged just through non-verbal communication. And it felt more normal. It felt really natural. It felt really blissful to be able to walk around in that way. And I know that that had something to do with the way that I had put out the way that I wanted to experience the world at that moment. And nothing else was actually going to come into my world or proximity through that walk. That is my way of meditating. That is my way of moving. So that was really lovely to have that there. But it is getting into the habit before going out and throughout the day of really grounding into earth and trusting your higher self, trusting that you are where you're meant to be and that you're going to be okay, and visualize. And it really helps to do this, actually, is closing your eyes and visualizing having a light sphere or just this protective cloak around you. And it can be in any way that you would like to visualize it, and the more personalized it is to you, the better, because less things are more inclined to get through. And really sort of, you can imagine sort of when you go out that it's like putting a coat on to protect you from the rain. That's what you're doing. You're putting an energetic coat on to protect you from other people's negative energies. But you can do it in a way that if you put your frequency up, that people at a similar match or having a similar way of viewing the world are more likely to interact with you. And that helps sustain it, that helps move it forward. And then that brings me into the tree. The tree always makes me smile. So does the polar bear, because I always think of mama bear protecting her children. And that's what you're doing, is you're protecting your child, your inner child, your ability to actually alchemize and create the world that you would like to live in. Which brings me into the tree. So the tree is manifold. So it's really suggesting at the moment to really, I can't say this enough, anchor into ourselves. Like with that piece of wood that I was talking about, it's okay to rely or utilize or get support from an outside source, but always holding true to you and recognizing that it's okay to let go, that you don't need that support to survive. You don't need that piece of wood to navigate all the way through, that actually you are strong enough, you have the ability to do so. The tree as well is very representative of being very connected to earth underneath our feet, and source or higher self, guardian angels, dragons, unicorns, whatever it is for you. But it's being in touch with that higher aspect, and that goes back, as I've said before, as above so below, and that's all interlinked, always interlinked, and utilizing it to come through on a regular basis. And then I do find it quite useful to bring the energy up, going through and around, so that gives you the added support and protection which is coming in from the bear. But the there's several sides of the tree, and the other one is literally talking or hugging a tree, which yes, I did do today, and I absolutely adore. And listening to the trees, because they have survived for many a century on this planet, and they will continue to do so no matter what happens to us as human beings. And then the other side of that is just remembering to take time to rest, to nurture, to recuperate, to meditate, to allow yourself the time and space to see how you're impacted by it. So that's what I was talking about with the eddy in the stream. It is useful to use those times where the flow calms down a little bit and really restock, breathe, and just take that moment to relax and chill before going on again. But it is important to continue moving forward. And then the lily is the last. And in this, I really feel that this is very much about health and how we're supported health-wise. So on a physiological level, really paying attention to how much sleep you're getting and ensuring you get extra rest at the moment, and being mindful of the foods that you're consuming, and supporting your immune system with, and that as well is also coming from being outside. It is really important to take those walks at the moment to get the UV ray light, because that is vitamin D, and that's how our bodies get vitamin D the most. And vitamin D really helps with the building blocks of our bodies and our cells, and helps support our immune system. There's some really horrendous diseases that come from people who lock themselves away inside, rickets being one of them. And there was a high incidence of rickets about 5-10 years ago in this country, because so many children were playing computer games inside and weren't getting enough sunlight or daylight. And it doesn't have to be sunlight, it can come through the clouds. And I feel that that is a part of why it looks so brighter outside at the moment, is that we're having that increase in that UV light so that we can create vitamin D within us. But there are plenty of foods and supplements. Foods are better for getting that vitamin D to help support our immune systems. And really looking at the foods, so like getting vitamin C and things like that from fruit and veg, and fruit is really good. But it's also looking after our mental health and emotional health, and not switching off our tellies works, and trying not to pay too close attention to the mainstream media and the different platforms out there, because there's quite dark stuff out there at the moment. And I'm not saying that it isn't real, because a lot of it is, but it's not designed. Be aware of how you feel around it. Is it producing fear in you? Is it producing anxiety? If it is, I recommend switching it off for a time and really going back to recharging your batteries, because fear, depression, anxiety, all of those exhaust us. And if we live in that constant state of stress, that does end up having a huge impact on us on a physiological level, and drains our adrenals, and that actually has a massive impact on our immune response as well. So that is why it's so important that we're getting sleep, we're eating food that will support us, that we're having our walks outside, interacting with nature, really recognizing that we are part of a bigger whole, at the same time maintaining our independence, which seems to be a little bit of a tricky one. And then there's the spiritual health, and it's not about religion, it's about us making sense of the world we live in and what is comfortable for us. And I know my spiritual health is very dependent on my contact and connection with earth underneath my feet and with the world around me in regards to birds, dogs, sunsets, the trees, the water, all of it is hugely important. It is very much entwined with my spirituality and my spiritual health. And I notice when I walk around the reserve that my spiritual well-being has been taken up so many levels, and then it works on so many other levels, sort of like the emotional level of actually having the interaction with other two-leggeds and the feathered friends and the four-leggeds, and just the water and watching the river go by and the clouds and the sunset and things like that. It just works on so many different levels, and I know we all have something along those lines, and the trick is finding that for each one of us. And it's useful to communicate with other people to get some ideas, but again, it's going back to the sacral. It's going back to our creative space and what feels right for us. And just because Joe Bloggs says it works brilliantly for them doesn't mean that it's going to work brilliantly for you or me. It has to make sense to us and feel like we can really anchor into it and go forward in that way. So I'm hoping this is beneficial. Again, I'm hoping this is recording all the way through, and I'm going to see which sound comes through for us today to add to this as well. Thank you very much for joining me and contributing your energies to this. I really, really love it. I'm hoping that I will be back again tomorrow. Who knows? And if you haven't already, can you think about hitting that subscribe button for me? And in the meantime, take care of yourselves. Love you all. Bye for now.